Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back today with, I guess we'll make it. I thought about doing Trust Monopoly, but I might make it things that need to be done. Because I got a number of playlists that share these same similar ideas in a way. But yeah. Before we jump into the video, I do want to go ahead and remind you, if you are so inclined to support me and the channel, we have two ways to do so. We have a Patreon account, which is a monthly, month-to-month donation system, and we have a Ko-fi account, which can do much the same, but also allows you to make single one-time donations. If you are in financial trouble, or donating would put you in financial trouble, please do not donate. I'd rather you take care of what you need to take care of now. It's hard enough on everybody, unfortunately, because of the morons that we have in charge. If you are in good financial shape and can afford and want to donate to me or the channel or both, whatever, thank you. I do appreciate it. It's me, myself, and I who do this. I do the research, filming, editing, posting, all that good stuff. And I've personally sworn off doing commercials as a personal choice. And currently I make no money from the actual videos as of yet. With all that said, let's jump into this video. As you can see, we're going to talk a bit about nationalization, which is something we need to start doing more of. I don't think it needs to be a permanent nationalization, but it needs to be something we use as a punishment mechanism. Because as long as it's in hands of the privatized economy, they'll do whatever they can to make money for them, basically saying, fuck the public. No. Nuh-uh. I think what we need to start doing is privatizing or nationalizing a lot of these companies. Essentially, grabbing them and taking ownership for the people for a limited number of years. And this is meant as a way to force a kind of morals into some of these bastards in these businesses. Because honestly, they clearly don't have it on their own. So nationalize. And let's go ahead and talk about what nationalization is. This is from Cambridge Dictionary. Nationalization, the process of a government taking control of a business or industry. Nationalization of agriculture is on the government's agenda. Kind of wish it was so we could afford food. But yeah. The administration is considering a partial nationalization of some banks. Something we have done in the past. A process by which government takes control of industry or company and becomes its owner. Again, I don't think this should be a long-term thing. It's a form of punishment. So that hopefully it can be something to force them to have some level of morals. And so we can keep prices on a lower level for the people. Because these fuckers, nah. If you are making millions of dollars as bonuses, as this, as that, no, they don't care. And that needs to end. It really, really, really does. The nationalization of STH. His plans include the nationalization of electricity and energy companies. Again, something to help the people. The contract they signed in October was less lucrative than the one they had before nationalization. Yeah, it also helps the average person because, again, corporate infrastructure of society has basically screwed over the average person because it's a ideation of greed. Let's hop over here to Britannica. This is Britannica money, so it's probably skewed a bit to a capitalistic standard, but whatever. Alteration or assumption of the control or ownership of private property by the state. It is historically a more recent development than and differs in motive and degree from expropriation or eminent domain, which is the right of the government to take property, sometimes without compensation for particular public purposes, such as construction of roads, reservoirs, or hospitals. Appropriate compensation for the nationalization of existing private businesses is mandated in the Charter of Economic Rights and Duties of States, adopted by the United Nations General Assembly in 1974, as well as by the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. A bailout is a form of nationalization in which the government takes temporary control of a majority of a company and its assets. In such situations, the company's private shareholders may remain. No, they have to go. This can't be about making money. It has to be about doing the right thing. But taxpayers, i.e., the government, also become shareholders by default, though their influence may be negligible. Nationalization, therefore, may occur through the transfer of companies' assets to the state or through the transfer of share capital, leaving the company in existence to carry out its business under state control. Nationalism may also occur without any form of takeover, reflecting the original nationalized nature of a particular industry, such as public education. In the United States, public education is government controlled at state levels. Nationalization has accompanied the implementation of communist or socialist theories of government, as was the case in the transfer of the industrial, banking, and insurance companies to the state of Russia after 1918, the nationalization of the oil industries in Mexico in 1938 and in Iran in 1951, and the nationalization of foreign businesses in Cuba in 1960. Yeah, socialism and communism, the whole idea is, especially under communism, it should be the people's production. They work at the industries. They should be the ones who own it, not these big money capitalist bastards. It is not uncommon, however, for industries such as mining, energy, water, healthcare, education, transportation, police, and military, in which taxpayers, through elected officials, may exert some measure of control over services that are required by a large majority of citizens. whether such industries should be owned by private businesses whose overriding objective is the maximization of profit, or by governments whose primary goal is to ensure cost effective services, it is at the heart of debates over nationalism. In some developing countries, temporary state control of various industrial operations may be implemented to mitigate the lack of a capital market or an insufficient supply of entrepreneurs in the domestic private sector, thus allowing for a sufficiently competitive market. Again, yeah, you have less competitors, you're a lot of companies tend to be greedy because they got no real competitors. That's when you go, no. We are taking possession of you and forcing a lowering of costs. And that should be how it is, because it should be all about the people. That should be first and foremost. Questions of international law normally arise only when the shareholders of a nationalized company are aliens, foreigners. In such situations, diplomacy and international arbitration ensure lawful payment of fair compensation. States whose nationals tend to be foreign investors are placing increasing reliance upon specific treaty clauses providing for the protection of investments. Since the end of World War II, the U.S. in particular has entered into such treaties, coupled with clauses conferring compulsory jurisdiction upon the International Court of Justice. Insurance against nationalization, expropriation, and confiscation is also offered by the U.S. government. Yeah, a lot of that's going to have to be raked away. We have to be able to nationalize if we need to force some level of control upon these companies. Nationalization of companies can have far-reaching consequences, both negative and positive, depending upon the motivations of the nationalizing entities and the impact on shareholders, taxpayers, and consumers. The Suez Canal, owned and operated for 87 years by the French and British, was nationalized several times during its history. In 1875 and 1882 by the British, and in 1956 by, where it actually is, Egypt, the last of which resulted in an invasion of the canal zone by Israel, France, and the UK to protect their interests, which included maintaining a passageway for the shipment of crude oil from the Persian Gulf. No. See, this is the kind of bullshit that never should have been happening, but greed, avarice, demonstrable vile behavior. The Suez Canal remains problematic or emblematic of the geopolitical implications inherited in nationalism when it is exercised as a means of asserting national and geographic sovereignty. I believe it should be used as a means to protect the citizens. Because guess what? You big capitalist fucks don't give a shit. You would rather charge the fuck out of people. So yeah, if you're out there wanting to screw over the average person, fuck you. I don't give a shit. We talked about it as the transforming of privately owned assets into public assets by bringing them under public ownership of a national government or state, and contrast with privatization and with demutualization. When previously nationalized assets are privatized or subsequently returned to public ownership at a later date, they are said to have undergone renationalization or deprivatization. Industries often subject to nationalization include telecommunications, electric power, fossil fuels, iron ore, railways, airlines, media, postal services, banks, and water, sometimes called the commanding heights of the economy. And in many jurisdictions, such entities have no history of private ownership. Nationalization may occur with or without financial compensation to the former owners. It is distinguished from property redistribution in that the government retains control of nationalized property. Unlike Trump, who it wasn't really nationalization, he didn't say the government needs to control this or that. I can't remember what company it was recently, but he put it in his own personal control. No, that's not nationalization. Some nationalizations take place when the government seizes property acquired illegally. In 1945, the French government seized the car maker Renault because its owners had collaborated with the 1940 to 44 Nazi occupiers of France. Economists distinguish between nationalization and socialization, which refers to the process of restructuring the economic framework, organizational structure, and institutions of an economy on a socialist basis. By contrast, nationalism does not necessarily imply social ownership and the restructuring of the economic system. Historically, states have carried out nationalizations for various different purposes under a wide variety of different political systems and economic systems. Nationalization was one of the major mechanisms advocated by democratic socialists and social democrats for gradually transitioning to socialism. The goals of nationalization were to dispossess large capitalists, redirect the profits of industry to the public purse, and establish some form of workers' self-management as a precursor to the establishment of a social economic system. Although sometimes undertaken as part of the strategy to build socialism, more commonly it was also undertaken and used to protect and develop industries perceived as being vital to a nation's competitiveness, such as aerospace and shipbuilding, or to protect jobs in certain industries. Yeah, but I believe it should be used as a punishment form for a lot of these companies and to protect the actual average person. Because you've got fucking billionaires when some people can't afford their own food to eat. They can't afford housing. Fuck you. If you think you deserve to be a billionaire and other people are suffering that bad, fuck you. That's when your business needs nationalization. Nationalization has had varying levels of support throughout history. After the Second World War, it was supported by social democratic and democratic socialist parties in Western Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. In the US, potentially nationalizing healthcare is often a topic of political disagreement and makes frequent appearances in debates between political candidates. A 2020 poll shows that a majority, 63% of Americans, support a nationalized healthcare system because the one run by fucking private industry, we can't afford. The renationalization occurs when state-owned assets are privatized and nationalized and later nationalized again, often in a different political party or faction is in power. A renationalization process may also be called reverse privatization. Nationalization has been used to refer to either direct state ownership or management of an enterprise, or to a government acquiring a large controlling share of the publicly listed corporation. According to research by Tasha Madavi, leaders who consider nationalization face a dilemma: nationalize and reap immediate gains while risking future prosperity, or maintain private organizations, thereby passing on revenue windfalls but securing long term fiscal streams. He argues that leaders nationalize extractive resources to extend the duration of their power by using this increased capital to secure political support. Again, I think it should be a temporary result because we want people to be able to fucking afford things. Record windfall revenue, fuck that shit. If people are struggling, it ain't worth a goddamn. Fuck you. Nationalization can have positive and negative effects. 2019 research based on studies from Greenwich University found that nationalization of key services, such as water, bus, railways, and broadband in the UK, could save £13 billion every year. Nationalization may produce other effects, such as reducing competition in the marketplace. Capitalism's already produced that, so yeah, try another one, fucktard. Which in turn reduces incentives to innovation and maintains high prices. Again, capitalism has already produced that. In the short run, nationalism can provide a larger revenue stream for government, but may cause that industry to falter depending on the motivations of the nationalizing party. It's not about making money for the government, it's about trying to help the fucking people when we're in tough times. Because there's too many fucking vile capitalist pigs who don't give a damn about the people. Nationalism was employed by the Panamanian government toward the Panama Canal, which came under the Panama Canal Authority in 1999, to internationally positive effect. Likewise, the Suez Canal was nationalized multiple times throughout history. In Germany, the federal press, Bundesdruckerei, was nationalized in 2008 with positive revenue and net income since. I don't think there should be a nationalized press, but I do think there should be a new fairness doctrine, which is an actual law instead of a fucking goddamn executive order. Because Reagan, that fucktard, his FCC tore it apart. And it's more or less allowed the rise of groups like Fox News who have screwed over how people look at things. Studies have found that nationalization allows a cyclical trend. It rose in the 60s and 70s, followed by an increase in privatization in the 80s and 90s, followed again by an increase in the 2000s and 2010s. In the US, it needs to happen now. Happen abso-fucking-lutely now. Expropriation is the seizure of private property by a public agency for the purpose deemed to be in the public interest. It is also used, it also may also be used as a penalty for criminal findings, and differs from eminent domain in that the property owner is not compensated for that seized property. So expropriation may be the more precise term I'm looking for. Unlike eminent domain, expropriation may also refer to the taking of private property by a private entity authorized by government to take property in certain situations. Due to political risks that are involved when countries engage in international business, it is important for investors to understand the expropriation risk and laws within each of the countries in which business is conducted. In Marxist theory, the term appears as expropriation of expropriators, the ruling classes in Marxist theory, which is also as the slogan "Loot the Looters," which was very popular during the Russian Revolution, which kind of came to the idea of the monarchy taking what they wanted. The term is also used to describe nationalization campaigns by communist states, such as the decolonization and collectivization of the USSR. See, again, I don't want it to go to individual peoples. I want it to go as a temporary form to the state to force morality so that people have a fucking fighting chance, god damn it. However, nationalization is not a specifically socialist strategy, and Marxism's founders were skeptical of its value. As Engels puts it, therein precisely lies the rub. So long as the property classes remain at the helm, nationalization never abolishes exploitation, but merely changes its form. In the French, American, or Swiss republics, no less than in monarchist Central or despotic Eastern Europe. So again, it's in my eyes, it needs to be a public ownership. The company still exists, but it's there to serve the people. And again, it should only be a temporary time. Nikolai Bukharin also criticized the term nationalism, referring to the term statization instead. So that gives us a look at nationalism. Like I said, if it was up to me, I think temporary seizures of businesses, especially when they've made deals with each other so that they don't step on each other's toes, no, that kind of shit can't be allowed. That kind of shit cannot be allowed. We seize those companies, force them to have actual competition with one another while forcing them to lower prices for the consumer. Because you shouldn't have millionaires and billionaires at the top of the company while people struggle. That's just fact. That's just truth. That's how it is. You don't like it? Suck my dick. But yeah, people, the everyday person needs to be protected, needs to be helped. I'm so ashamed sometimes to know that I live in a country where somebody has been a trillionaire while people still struggle to have homes, still struggle to have food. Screw people like Elon Musk and his ilk. Seriously. There are a number of businesses we could do this to start forcing. Now, this isn't the only option I think we should have, but it's definitely one we should an arrow we should have in the fucking quiver. But with all that said, let's go ahead and end this video there. As always, educate thyself. Think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing or it's tough believing. Ask them to cite their sources, and it can't be a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing sources or anecdotes thrown together to make sources. Like I once met up with a hunter who said he and some pals hunted down Bigfoot, and Bigfoot said, "Stop, chill, let's discuss things." Kind of doubt that. I kind of seriously doubt that. I'll be putting my links and sources in the description box below the video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all in the next one. Until then, I can't speak.